Hello, this is Brian. Today is Wednesday, June 4th, 2025, and I'm here in the Jamul Mountains near the town of Jamul. It is time for a Spotlight on Shrubs video. Today's subject is this beautiful shrub here, locally common in this area, and this is called Chaparral Pea. And this is the hairier variant. This is Pickeringia montana, variety tomentosa. So I'll go into details about that momentarily. But what we have here is a generally evergreen, medium size, sometimes large shrub, and it's a member of the Pea family, the Fabaceae, as Chaparral Pea alludes to accurately. Sometimes you can't trust the common names of plants to dictate what relationships they have to other plants with similar names. This is a plant in the Pea family. So what we have here is kind of a spindly, not very dense, very thorny shrub. These spines at the end of these twigs. So be careful when you go up to this plant to touch it, you might get jabbed, and they can be pretty sharp. So, montana refers to its habitat in hills and mountains, and here we are. We're probably about 1,700 feet in elevation, and we are in south central San Diego County, where this plant can be occasionally found. I've only seen this one twice in the wild. The only other place I've seen this in the wild thus far is on Viejas Mountain, which is probably about 15 miles away in Alpine, and that's on the slopes of Viejas Mountain. As I hiked the South Ridge up there where I found this plant. But this is the first time I've ever seen it in bloom, because when I hiked it was in September on Viejas Mountain. This is June. We're definitely well past the peak, but it does have blooms on it, so I can show you both the blooms and the fruit. Two important characteristics I like to have in front of me when I do spotlight videos. So yes, we got this kind of spindly shrub with some pretty nice mottled gray, lightish gray bark. Multi-stemmed is typical as you expect for a shrub. It likes these more north-facing slopes here in the southern San Diego County chaparral. It's not a very commonly occurring plant here. It does have a wider range. I will go ahead and post that up. And it's also a different variant of what I said before. The Pickeringia montana has another variant, Pickeringia montana, variety montana, which is not the subject of this video, but it has another variant of this plant. Again, this is variety tomentosa, and what that alludes to is kind of hard to see, but if you look carefully and you feel it, you can feel a gentle fuzziness on the foliage of the plants. And that's where the variant name tomentosa comes from. The foliage and the twigs, the newer twigs, are fuzzy or tomentose. So let me go ahead and get a couple pictures of a couple of the aspects of this plant, and we'll start talking about more aspects, including flowers and fruit. Alright, so you kind of got a slight idea of what the foliage looks like, but let's take a deeper dive into the actual form of the leaves. The leaves are actually divided into 3 leaflets. As you can see beneath my thumb, right beneath my thumb, or should I say right above my thumb, right here is a leaf. Those are the 3 leaflets on Pickeringia montana. Both variants have the same amount, generally the same amount of leaflets, 3 leaflets. And you can see they're kind of folded upwards at the midrib of the leaflet. And there's not really a huge leaf stalk connecting them to the twig, so they're basically subsessile. In other words, basically stalkless. Sessile means stalkless. No leaf stalk or petiole. So they're subsessile. And again, 3 leaflets, gently fuzzy, especially more noticeable on the newer leaves. As you can tell, this one's been sprouting new leaves over the last couple months. So yes, indeed, tomentosa, the fuzziness aspect of this plant. So, leaflets of 3. Bright minty color when young, dullish darker green when mature. And again, at the end of each stem is a sharp-tipped spine. So again, be careful when you're touching this plant. Or if you have to bushwhack through it, I feel bad for you. So probably don't want to bushwhack through this plant. So let's go ahead and get a couple of close-ups, and then I'll start talking about some of the other aspects. Sometimes it's pretty hard to tell that they actually have 3 leaflets because the leaves are so bundled together along the sides of the branches, it's actually hard to tell. When I first saw this plant on Viejas Mountain, when I first saw it for the first time in the wild of Viejas, I thought it was another species of Ceanothus, because a lot of Ceanothus plants, which are unrelated, have spiny tips on the ends of the branches. But then I happened to notice out of the corner of my eye that they were divided into leaflets, and then I knew I was looking at Pickeringia, not a Ceanothus. Alright, so this plant has some very striking purple flowers. Now, I'm here past the peak, but there are just enough flowers for me to be able to at least give you an idea of the treat you're in for if you see this plant during the mid-spring. Now, we're going towards the end of spring into summer, so we're going from blooms into seed. Now, see if I can not get myself all wet here, because it's very moist and damp out here. But you get these pea-like flowers in mass, very attractive flowering shrub here in the chaparral. You can see typical pea-like flowers on this plant. Very beautiful, very striking flowers. So at least I was able to get this plant still in bloom, because I really wanted to do a spotlight on this one, and I never seen this plant in the wild in bloom before. I've seen the plant in Arboreta before, but that was before I even started filming. So yes, beautiful flowers on this shrub. I'm going to try to gently manipulate this twig over here so you can get a closer look. Very beautiful. You're going to only find this on a few spots here and there scattered here in Southern California. I don't know the full range of this plant, but it's mostly, I believe it's mostly here in Southern California, and I believe it's mostly on mafic soil types. I believe this is mafic soil here, because we also have a couple of other plants common in mafic soil. Well, sometimes relegated to it, such as this plant here, southern bear clover or southern mountain misery, Papilionoideae australis. And then we also got some other stuff that you normally see on a lot of these mafic soils, like heartleaf pitcher sage. Sorry for the fuzziness of the view here, but yes. Pretty crazy. So heartleaf pitcher sage is a close associate, not a close relative, but a close associate. And it's that shrub with the white flowers over this Pickeringia cardiophylla. So yes, the beautiful, beautiful Pickeringia montana variety tomentosa. Let me get another picture or two of this. Okay, so for the next part of this episode, let's go talk about what typically occurs when these plants fruit. Well, it's in the pea family, so what you can typically expect is a seed pod or a legume. Legumes are common in the pea family. These are the developing legumes right here. Kind of small, probably not full size yet, but you can tell that they're multi-chambered. Well, not areas you see constrictions between where the seeds are. Fatter sections where the seeds are. The narrow parts is a constriction between the seeds. Pretty typical of the pea family. Little seed pods. Eventually dry, open, split, and release the seeds into the ground. Most likely, this plant is propagated by fire scarification. In other words, the seeds probably relying mostly on fire for regeneration, as the seeds on a lot of pea family plants, and I'm assuming this is no different, are very hard-coated, and it requires scarification. In other words, tissue to be penetrated, as a way to break the dormancy of the seed. And it's probably a combination of summer or autumn fires and winter rains, and maybe in the higher elevations of its growth, snowmelt. Mostly, I think you're going to mostly find this below 4,000 feet. I'll have to double check on that, but it's typically a lower elevation shrub. We're a little bit below 2,000 feet right now. And yes, a good place to find this is supposed to be on the top of Otay Mountain, which is just a few miles away, roughly south of here. It's supposed to be a nice grove of it along the road up to the top. I've seen a picture of it. Was it a picture of it or a YouTube video of somebody going up Otay Mountain, and you can see tons of it all on the side of the road. But I'm here now. It's in bloom still. It's getting seeds on it. I just had to get over here and spotlight this awesome shrub. Not very common here in Southern California. Another place you might be able to find this, they're probably scattered here in San Diego County, scattered in this general vicinity. But you might also find it in the Santa Ana Mountains, very uncommon there. But near the base, I think near the base, I want to see near the base of Old Sugarloaf Peak, or Sugarloaf Peak, near that area, I believe, in Cleveland National Forest in Orange County. You might be able to find it there too. I haven't seen it there. I've been in that area before, but I never noticed it. But yeah, beautiful Chaparral Pea up here in the Jamul Mountains. Probably, I'd say scattered to fairly common, probably in these hills. It's pretty common in this area, actually. You go through a period where you won't see much of it, but then you'll see a bunch of it. And all these spindly shrubs here are thickleaf herbaceae. These are different. But those other spindly shrubs with the smaller foliage, these are all chaparral peas. I want to very carefully descend this. Growing right next to the southern bear clover, southern mountain misery, is another chaparral pea in seed. So these two can be pretty common cohorts in the chaparral, especially in mafic chaparral up here in the Jamul Mountains. Nearby San Miguel Mountain should be covered in these species. But yeah, chaparral pea, Pickeringia montana variety tomentosa. If or when I ever finally get to the typical variant, that'll be a subject for a special spotlight as well, for a separate spotlight video. But again, see, here are the older leaves again. The older leaves retain just maybe a little bit of fuzziness, but not as much, and they're darker green. You really notice it on the new foliage. So I think that's going to do it for this episode of Spotlight. Thanks for watching. And if you want to see more about its cohort here, the Southern Mountain Misery, check out my Spotlight video on that. That should be about it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. When you're out here in the mafic chaparral of South Central San Diego County, keep an eye out for chaparral pea. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.